Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when this finds you. Hope everybody's having a great day. If you started, hope you have a great day if you haven't. And if you finish your day, hope you had a great day. We're in the midst of a new calendar year. And of course, I hadn't released a video, I guess, in a couple of months or so, something like that. I don't even know anymore. But, as I've mentioned on prior videos, I'm not going to keep on all of my content into this platform and uh, helping promote it, and it's not being shared. So, but I'm gonna put this video on the platform, and I did a little questionnaire, a poll, uh, and asked if y'all wanted me to do one long video, a series of shorter videos, or it didn't matter on this particular subject area, and hadn't got any feedback on it. So, how long I feel like talking at this moment. If I feel like talking and just doing all of it at one time, I'm gonna do it. If I'll just break it up into several shorter videos. Either way, if you want to listen, you can. Even if it's a longer video, you don't have to listen to it all at one time. You can just go back and finish. But you know, I know some people. Right now, I'm currently um, watching a series that's been going on for several weeks now. I think part 15 is getting ready to come out. Not my series in it, of course, but I can keep it on. But the gentleman who's doing the series, he has a large following. His videos are being promoted, so it's easy to for him to maintain. Somebody going back. But in my experience on this channel, when I've done part one and part two, I think there's even a set of I did 4 videos on one subject matter. It hasn't transitioned well, I guess, for lack of a better statement at the moment. But I'm going to talk about a subject area that's going to be a real sore area for a lot of people, maybe, because especially if you've come up in Christianity like I have. And as I've stated on prior videos at some point last year, the more I study Christianity, the more I want to stay away from it, because Christianity is not even in the Bible. I've mentioned that before. The word Christian is not in the Bible, even though the modern Bible said over in Acts. But Psalms 115:7b says, "They have eyes, but they do not see." And if you go back and listen to a lot of the previous videos where I've talked about Christianity and paganism and the Protestant fathers and all of that, and you haven't, something hasn't stirred in you to say, maybe I've been misled my entire life. You know, I don't know what to tell you at this point, because, you got all these folks out here, hoping things are going to get better. We got the MACA crowd, and, I'm not putting that down, but I'm going to be honest with you. Things ain't going to get better. The Bible has already foretold that things are going to continue to get worse. At this point in the game, the only time things are going to get better is when we head into a new Jerusalem, and not that one over in Israel. So I'm just telling you, we can sit here and pray for better days. And the only thing I can say is we better pray to just get right. But it says they have eyes, but they do not see. And see, in this society, they have made us value titles, degrees, pedigrees, and accolades more than we value people. If someone had higher degrees or a title, we get enamored with the title, not the person. Two different guys that I've had the opportunity to meet named Wayne. One's white, one's black, one's passed on now. But they taught me something years ago. One was a dentist, and the other one was an airline employee. And both had become successful businessmen outside of their chosen career paths. And when I met the dentist one on one, I addressed him as doctor because I had been trained just like many of you. He immediately told me, "No, my name is Wayne. I'm not a dentist outside of my office." The other guy was introduced to someone who was a doctor, and he asked him, "What's your first name? Because I'm not a patient in your office." And you're probably saying, "Myron, what you getting at?" Well, I'm glad you asked. Because pastor is not a title, position, or role according to our Bibles. See, the pastor is a custom and tradition created by Gentiles. And the children of Israel were instructed over and over again to not follow the customs and traditions of other nations. It was literally that type of behavior of our Hebrew ancestors that led them into slavery. See, remember what it says in 1 Samuel 8? But the word was evil in the eyes of Shemuel when they said, "Give us a sovereign to rule us." So Shemuel prayed to Yahuwah. And just so we're clear, his name is Shemuel, not Samuel, okay? But it continues. And Yahuwah said to Shemuel, "Listen to the voice of the people and all they say to you. For they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from reigning over them, according to all the works which they have done since the day that I brought them up out of Mitzrayim." Mitzrayim is Egypt. "Even to this day, forsaking me and serving other mighty ones, so they are doing to you too. And now, listen to their voice, but you shall certainly warn them and shall make them known to them the ruling of the sovereign who does reign over them." And Shemuel spoke all the words of Yahuwah to the people who asked him for a sovereign. Now that's 1 Samuel chapter 8, verses 6 through 10. And see, maybe many of you have never thought about this, but we never retire or step down from callings if it came from Yahuwah, the one you call God. The key there is it came from Yahuwah. See, I have 3 family members who were supposedly called to preach years ago. Today, not one of them is a preacher anymore. One of the top motivational speakers in the world started out as a pastor. And now many of these top pastors around the country, how many did we see step down in the year 2024? For whatever reason. And my thing is, you say God called you to do something. Well, if God called you to do something, did God change his mind because he got confused at some point? The associate pastor of the church I grew up in, he's no longer a minister. And so, I'm just wondering, is God confused? Is y'all confused? So all of these men stepped down in 2024 for whatever reason, sin, whatever. But Yahuwah called King David to lead. Now, King David was an adulterer and a murderer, yet Yah still allowed him to lead. Samson slept with a prostitute and lived with a woman he wasn't married to, yet Yah still used him. Peter denied his homeboy, Yahusha, 3 times, and he still has 2 books in the Bible. Paul was out there persecuting believers. See, what am I saying? If Yahuwah calls you to do something, in spite of your sins, he still uses you. None of the men in the Bible were ever called pastor or reverend. None of them were ever perfect. Let me tell you something. Yahuwah has never called any man to be a pastor And by the time I finish this, you're going to understand why I'm not saying any of these men who have taken to the cloth. You're going to understand why. But by the time I finish this, you're going to understand why I'm going to say what I'm saying. You know, I'm not saying any of these men who have taken to the cloth are bad men at all. They've just been misled on tradition and Gentile customs in misapplication of the Bible. There are some excellent men in pulpits. They're filled with the Spirit. They teach a great word. However, contrary to what all of them teach, they are still out of biblical order. See, there are two things you never need to feel guilty about: putting your family first and keeping more of the money you earn in your own pockets. See, many pastors work to violate both of them. They'll tell you to give God first, which violates both of those. I've never been silent on how I feel about taking care of a grown man who's just too lazy to work to care for himself and his family. We don't need another man to read the Bible to us once a week. It's not elementary school story time. Luke chapter 10, verses 7 and 8 makes it abundantly clear how we are to take care of traveling teachers. There is nothing in the Bible that says to pay a standing local teacher, because as new believers, all of us have become teachers ourselves in one capacity or another. And if all of us have become a teacher, should all of us receive payment for teaching the word of Yah? And see, I'm going to use the Bible to prove everything to you. Now, what you do with the information is no concern of mine. I'm not telling you to stop going to your church. I'm sharing what I've learned to open your eyes. I remember I used to work for this company no longer around called Computer City. And every morning, the management team had to meet, and we had to go over the goals for the day. And every day, the top manager, because I was one of the lower managers, um, he would always hand each one of us a quote for the day. And one day, I remember this one so well. And it says, "You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink." And the reply to that was, your goal is not to make him drink. Your goal is to make him thirsty. So I'm going to break this down into parts so you can listen at your leisure as I spoke, and not have to sit and listen to a long video. Like I said, I'm going to determine as I go along if I want to do one long video or if I'm going to do several shorter videos, maybe cut them off at 25, 30 minutes and, just do several of those. I don't know yet. We'll see. Also, depends on how much memory I have on my laptop. Still haven't got my desktop back up and running. So that's all. And my desktop is where I had my app. So we'll see. But I pray that you find value in the information I'm going to share with you on this topic. And stop judging. Stop take that out of your mind. Stop judging. I know I'm not your pastor. I'm not trying to be your pastor, because we've all been misled. All of us that have come through Christianity, all of us that have come through Catholicism, all of us that have follow Islam, we've all been misled. But I'm just talking about Christianity at this point. I'm not going to sit there and deal with the other religions because there's too many of them anyway. I just pray that this helps you in your personal journey. Now, let me be clear. This is not going to be popular because we've been lied to for so long. It's not going to be popular because many men are not ready to assume their real headship position as the spiritual leader of their families. See, taking your family to church is a start, but leading your family as a spiritual head should be the goal. Nowhere in the Bible does it ever command us men to turn over our wives and children to another man. As I mentioned, there is no such thing as pastor in the Bible. And I know where you're going to come, Ephesians 4:11, but we're going to get to that a little bit later. But the word pastor singular is nowhere in the Bible. And let me go and just bust your bubble right now. The word pastors plural is not in the Bible either. That's the modern translation. And so I'm going to tell you throughout the video what the word was before they started to tinker with the translations. Now, if you tinker with or manipulate the Bible, you're out of biblical order. 1 Corinthians 14 and 33 says, "For Elohim is not Elohim of this order, but of peace, as in all the assemblies, not church, of the set apart ones." Verse 40 says, "Let everything be done decently and in order." What is the order? Has your pastor ever told you the order? You don't need the pastor to tell you the order. The Bible tells you what the order is itself. See, if the pastor ever told you what the order is, he's going to become irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. If he mentioned these verses I'm getting ready to share, I guarantee you he didn't explain it to you in this fashion. 1 Corinthians 11 explains the order. "And I praise you, brothers, that you remember me in every way and keep the traditions as I delivered them to you. And I wish you to know that the head of every man is the Messiah, and the head of woman is the man, and the head of Messiah is Elohim." See, that's verses 2 and 3 in 1 Corinthians 11. See, verse 4 says, "A man praying and prophesied with his head covered brings shame." So that's just one verse that invalidates the position of the Pope. Matthew 23, verses 8 through 10 says not to call anyone rabbi, father, or leader. That means we're not supposed to be addressing anyone as pastor or reverend, whatever. Those verses show that we are never to use title to address anyone. You know why? Because every last one of us who meet with one another are equals. There's no caste system, there's no hierarchy in the assembly. There's a hierarchy and a caste system in the church. See, the pastor is not supposed to be separate from the people. It is truly a caste system. Caste, Caste. In the Encyclopedia of Freemasonry by Albert Mackey, it states that the title reverend, is sometimes given to a chaplain of a Masonic body. Now, what y'all gonna do with that? See, one of the things almost all of us were taught growing up was there were two things to never talk about, and those were politics and religion. Well, the two things doing the most damage to us and are the very things we were instructed to not discuss: politics and religion. Politicians are nothing but crooks, and so are most of your pastors. Both positions have become professions, and neither of them are supposed to be. I don't care how long they've been functioning in their current capacity, they're still wrong. See, people have been so bamboozled that they think these positions are supposed to sustain the person in the position. Some years back, a classmate asked me how a pastor was supposed to live if the congregation didn't pay him. I said he needed to find a job. Most of your politicians had poor law careers, so they decided to enter politics. Politicians were only supposed to receive a stipend for their service, never a salary. Traveling teachers of the Bible were supposed to receive wages according to Luke 10, verses 7 through 8, and free will offerings. Both positions have exploited the people greatly. And I, just like many of you, came up in a current church system where you have one teacher stand on a podium and do the teaching. I never thought it was supposed to be another way until I read a book years ago called Pagan Christianity. Frank Viola. And see, the book was the first step in me really starting to study the entire flawed system that we follow regarding church. See, I was in a bookstore one day and I came across the title. The only reason I even picked his book up was because of his co author, George Barna. George Barna was someone I had followed for years. I used to get his email, his newsletter daily. But see, the book really opened my eyes to everything we were doing in church and how flawed it was. Although I read the book, my wife and I still attended church. However, at this point, I started taking a tablet with me every Saturday, not the electronic tablet. I'm talking about pen and paper. I love to write. Me and my sister still use tablets, pen, and paper right now. But I started taking my tablet with me every Sunday, and I started to take notes during the sermon, every service. The more I took notes to come home and study, the more frustrated I got with the church. But we still kept going. I would listen to the sermon, and on the way home, I would talk to my wife about the errors that I believe were in the sermon. Then I'd come home and do some more study, but we still went to church. Some Sundays, different couples would come sit near us and extend invites to Sunday school. Well, I didn't really like Sunday school as a child, so I wasn't voluntarily going. I don't like doing things that are compulsory. And as a child, Sunday school was like attending public school. One Sunday out of the month, we would have Bible competitions against the adults, and that was the only Sunday I enjoyed it. It was like in public school. In elementary and middle school, I enjoyed PE. In high school, I enjoyed woodshop. But anything that had school in the title, I hated it. The couples eventually gave up trying to get us to attend Sunday school. But our father, Yah, saw that I was still hard headed. See, years earlier, I'm gonna give you this example. Years earlier, I had remained on a job long after I should have quit. I was being mistreated. I was doing, helping the company as much as I could. Somebody quit in another city, another state, Myron, can you go? Yeah, I'll go cover for you. Worked for that company 7 years, not one raise. Year 7, they finally gave me a raise. The very next month, I started getting write-ups every week. So I should have left, but I was being hard-headed. But like many of you, I had grown comfortable in my discomfort. So in the beginning, I only lost a few accounts. I still didn't take heed. Hurricane Katrina came through and wiped out one of the companies that we had an account in, so they just canceled the whole account nationwide. But I still didn't take heed. So then the company kept messing with me, and I lost all but 3 of my accounts. There was no way I could survive on 3 accounts when I had 47. So I had no choice but to quit. And the dude gonna tell me, the district manager gonna tell me, if you don't get them 3 stores done by 5 o'clock Friday, I'm gonna have to fire you. I didn't respond to him. That was on a Monday. And so Friday at 4:59, I sent an email, told him I quit that Monday when he gave me that message. But I should have been gone. And so for me, it happened in a similar fashion with attending church. Even though I had read Paolo's book years before, and even though I started getting frustrated knowing I wasn't doing the biblical thing by attending church, I still got up on the not biblical day, Sunday, and drove myself and my wife to church. Something happened. Something happened. I messed up my foot. I used to get up every morning and run at the park. And one morning I messed my foot up, which now sidelined me. As my foot began to heal, the doctor then made it worse, which now required surgery. The doctor hadn't touched my foot in 6 months because he said it needed to take its own natural course. Month 6, all of a sudden, he wants to take a scalpel and start cutting on it. So now I got to go through surgery, which sidelined me much longer. Another 3 years and 3 months to be exact. That's how long I was sidelined. As soon as the foot healed, my wife and I were in an apartment at the time because we had to get our whole house gutted and rebuilt. So we went in an apartment while they were doing that. So the day we moved back home, the very next day, I ended up in the hospital. So this time it took much longer because some of the things that happened while I was under these professional medical people, under their care. And I still haven't recovered from that. But I'm not angry about it anymore. Well, guess what? We haven't been to church since the beginning of 2018. We have been in a church twice since then, and those 2 times were for funerals. Now, I still listen to pastors on YouTube, but that's about as far as I'll go now. I ain't going to sit in nobody's church and listen to them no more. I'm done with that. See, being sidelined has allowed me to study more. which is where the other videos on Christianity have come from. See, I started understanding that nothing in our current worship system is biblical. And I mean nothing. First thing is we worship on Sunday. Last church we attended had a lot of great people, and I remember the pastor explaining why we worship on Sundays now, but he left out the part about Constantine. On the way home that day, I told my wife that the pastor did a great job explaining how we got Sunday service, and as eloquent as he came across, he was wrong. My wife and I will watch sermons on Sunday right now, but guess what? I watch something almost every day. As a husband, it's my biblical duty to make sure my wife is learning Yah's word from me. Men, your wife has no business learning the Bible from another man without you ever being present. See, I've had to travel in the past a lot of times, and I will be gone on Sundays. Guess what? My wife did not even attend church without me. I never told her to stay at home. She understood the biblical roles. And this was years before I know what I know now. I ended up telling her, she could go ahead and attend church if I was traveling because we would still discuss what the pastor taught. So the few times she did, she would call me afterwards to talk about the message. And, if you say something like that around some of these feminist minded women, they gonna complain. They would think I'm trying to control my wife. And she's an adult and I can't tell her what to do. Well, these women who think like this are either single or frustrated in their marriages. See, the problem with a lot of women today is they don't show enough respect for their husbands. Woman, your husband is your protector, provider, and spiritual head. See, many of your pastors are trying to fill those roles from afar. And many of you women crave the pastor's acceptance over your husband's leadership. See, I don't care how good your pastor is. I don't care how spirit filled he is. If he's the only one teaching on the not Sabbath Sunday, he's out of biblical order. The word pastors, plural, is mentioned once in the entire Bible. And like I said, that's only in the modern version. Once in Ephesians. And that verse is a modern translation of pastors. Here's what it actually says in Ephesians 4:11. And he himself gave some as emissaries, and some as prophets, and some as evangelists, and some as shepherds, and some as teachers. Pastors is nowhere in that verse. Shepherd does not translate to pastors. I don't care what that Latin word poimen says. It's not the proper translation. Because if we're going to say shepherd means pastor, and Rachel, Laban's daughter, was a shepherdess, then that invalidates 1 Timothy 2, where it says, I suffer not a woman to teach. But see, Rachel was a shepherd. That's right in Genesis 29:9. But see, I get how they try to justify it because the Bible refers to people as sheep many times when Yahusha is talking to Cephas. That's Peter. So men thought they could just translate shepherd or sheep herder to pastor since a shepherd is a herdsman of sheep. See, man, once you become a new believer, born again of spirit, you have joined the royal priesthood. That is every born again man. 1 Peter 2:9 reads, But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a set apart nation, a people for a possession, that you should proclaim the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Now, I'm gonna stop that one right there, and I'm gonna try to upload all parts on the same day, but I'm gonna stop this part one right here.